Web3.tv.
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Oyedeji Oluwoye, the entrepreneur, blockchain expert, and financial equality advocate. You are the co-founder and CTO of Canza Finance, a pioneering platform that is redefining access to financial services in emerging markets by combining blockchain technology with decentralized finance and tokenized assets. Canza Finance is solving the critical problem of financial exclusion by bridging the gap between traditional financial systems and cutting-edge technology. You empower people in underserved regions with innovative solutions like cross-border settlements, decentralized protocols, and tokenized real-world assets, giving them access to stable, secure, and scalable financial products. Your mission is to build the world's largest neobank by leveraging Web3 technology to create universally accessible financial services that drive inclusive economic growth. Ultimately, you believe that by unlocking the power of the blockchain, Canza Finance will empower billions of people in emerging markets to achieve financial independence and sustainable development. Deji, welcome to London Real in Dubai.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Dude, we're excited to have you here. I want to start by saying that Canza Finance is one of our portfolio companies here at London Real Ventures, the world's first media-powered investment firm, where our mission is to transform the world by investing in cutting-edge Web3 and AI companies while giving our partners marketing exposure across the London Real media platforms and academies. We heighten awareness, create customers, and build communities by leveraging our global audience and extensive network. Deji, we are super excited to be part of this journey with you. So let's jump in. What is Canza Finance?
Thank you. I love the intro. So Canza Finance basically is emerging market infrastructure, really assisting the demand of stablecoins that are needed within those different markets, as well as assisting with the RWA sector. So there's different aspects of tokenization that we need to basically implement, because when we're talking about different markets, we have to build each of those stacks. So Canza Finance is building the innovative tools on-chain and, like you said, financially accessible.
You know, in decentralized finance, when we all come into this space, we hear, it's this massive opportunity in this massive ecosystem. And then soon after, we hear about the billions of unbanked people in the world. And I know you had kind of an early realization when you were looking at friends and relatives that were sending money in Africa using Western Union. Yep. And I also remind people that there's also tens of millions of people in the good old US of A and people in Europe that are also unbanked, that get fleeced by these organizations to do financial transactions. And I believe you even said in the past, these are the very people that actually need the money. And yet they're being charged these ridiculous rates and not even being offered services in banking. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? I think it was maybe some of those aha moments that kind of drove you to create Canza.
100%. So I spent like 7 years as a network engineer, building out the network within the Asia-Pac region. And I started seeing how we're all interconnecting, right? The world is global now. I think that's a big ethos of Web3. It's basically global connectivity. So when we're talking about different parts of the world, you go to Africa, you can go to some parts of Southeast Asia, even some parts of LATAM as well. Mobile phones is one of the biggest penetration aspects. And that's what I've seen from my network and engineering career, is that you can utilize the telco technology and basically the infrastructure. And then Cisco had basically a line which it was called the human network. So if we start looking at people like that, it's just peer-to-peer, same parts of what we've seen in the Bitcoin white paper. Now we can utilize those different tools and technology, and we can send all different types of data. And that's the biggest thing about Web3. It's not just about finance. As we've probably heard many times, Bitcoin is just the first application of Web3. But then now you can think about other different aspects, the healthcare, governmental sectors. So I think that's the part you can utilize this mobile penetration, build an overlay, different infrastructure on top of that, and now get access to different tools.
You've got quite an interesting story. I mean, you think you were born in Australia, moved to Alabama, then you moved to Nigeria, now you spend also time in Dubai. You were, like you said, network engineer, working at AT&T, doing all sorts of tech stuff in America. What made you decide to change it all up and go into decentralized finance, move to Nigeria and tackle this massive problem of decentralized finance in Africa and emerging markets?
That's a really great question. I think when basically corporate America aspect, when you think you're going towards the right path, right? You go to school, you do your master's degree, you're making sure you hit all your KPIs. At some point, I just felt like once you get into these systems, I'm a person of, if I'm putting a lot of energy into something, I would like to see that effort on the other side. Then once I got into these different realms, you started understanding that, hold on, these systems are not truly for like the hard workers, the go-getters type of thing. So after that, I started getting into digital assets. I did that as my master's thesis. And I was looking at the internet of money. Once I figured that out, I was like, okay. I started seeing how much, like if I were to send money back into Africa, the Western Union fees model didn't make sense to me. And I'm a person that I dive into rabbit holes. So yeah, I've been down the rabbit hole for the last 9.5 years. So very interesting.
So when did you first get into blockchain and buy your first bit of Bitcoin? And
Yeah, 100%. 2015, for the master's thesis. The thesis was called the network infrastructure of the Bitcoin network.
Wow.
So at that time, downloaded Coinbase on the phone. There was like CoinDesk. It was the only one that's giving me like the information of the tickers. You had like these different like message boards. Like none of the information was truly centralized, so you have to really dig through it. I'll be very honest. I probably never said this before. The reason why I went this topic for my master's thesis is because I knew like even my professors couldn't really dig into it, right? So, but now that put me on this journey now, which I've loved. It showed so many different like hurdles and cycles. But yeah, I think it was around 424 because the previous cycles was the halvings. So I wanted to test that out for the thesis as well, and then the halving was going to be in May 2016. So, and that's when I seen a price increase of like from 424 to like 6 something. I was like, oh, $200. So this is it, right? So that's when I really got into it. And then 2016 rolled over into the end of that. That's when Ethereum, you had like these different networks breaking off. Ethereum Classic, and then you had Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, and then moved into spring 2017. And then that's when like you had like the old platforms such as like GDAX, we used to be now Coinbase Pro. And then they listed Litecoin, and then it just kept going. Like ICOs, Ethereum, basically utilizing that platform to fundraise. That was the biggest use case. And then, I've just been stuck ever since, man.
And when did you decide to go all in on Canza?
Yeah, great one. That's a really great one. This is 2020, COVID. COVID. So COVID was coming around. There was an opportunity to leave as well. And then I got into an accelerator. And this is what I really knew. Because in 2017, I started going back to my yearly trips to Africa. And I was like, hey man, you guys should look into this, right? Because I seen currency agents on the street, they're doing trades. So I was like, hold on, this is like African Wall Street, right? But it was like, what's the word we use now? Hard delivery, like people are just doing it. It's just cash and this is just FX. So I was like, okay, there could be telco tools that we could build around this to give the rates to some of these agents. So we there was a tool, maybe you're familiar as well. You know, the star like 347 hash to top up prepaid cards. So that's called USSD. And myself and my co-founder, we started building APIs with that, with Africa's Talking APIs. We connected that, fed into the rates, and then that would go into basically the short code message. So that was the initial aspect of building tools to assist these different regions. Because how I look at it, the internet is a great equalizer, right? There's no point of like us rebuilding the same system. So looking at Web3, we can now basically build tools that everyone has a fair shot. At least we can have that good restart type of thing. So I don't want these parts of the world or different sectors to be missing out just because of what reason, right? We all had we all started, the white paper came out. So that was a big asset there. Okay,
and then you accelerated, and by going through that, you started kind of sketching out what you wanted to build with Canza?
Yeah, so went to Australia for a year, got out of the tech, started working with my friend in the construction aspect, which was really good because Australians are very hard workers. So you can wake up at like 5 a.m. in the morning and you're working all day. So that's what I really get from that part of the world. But then we got into another accelerator. So we graduated at this Protocol Labs in Consensus Mesh. Very, very good, insightful, understanding how to build a product and then basically scale. And then from there, as an entrepreneur, once you say you're a new entrepreneur, you go into an accelerator, it's like, hold on, I do this, we raise capital, and then you go, it's not like that, right? Just like with everything in life. So basically, that really had a good period of like really building the right product and the right avenue. And then there came to a point as well as I've been really focused on this narrative since 2015. But I have another aspect that one of my uncles said, to really be like other, you need to build products for the people. You don't really just build products for the governments, etc. Like that will not change if anything else changes. So that's when I was like, I have to relocate to Africa as an adult. And that was a really good journey. Learned a lot, and yeah, it was good. It was good. And that's basically the starting blocks. I think 4 months into that's when we started doing our seed round. And then, yeah, basically all the investors that we met like a year and a half before that and all the accelerators previously, that's when they're like, okay, hold on. It's not just you're talking the narrative, right? You're really actually there on the ground. Yeah. And I think that was a very big factor.
I think when you kind of came and pitched our group, for me, that was a real turning point in the conversation when you said, you can't build, a DeFi system in Africa unless you're in Africa.
Yeah, facts.
And then when you move there and you're on the ground, I was like, okay, this guy's serious.
Yeah, I think, there is a lot in the diaspora, right? You go to the UK, you go to the US, you go to schooling, and you're like, okay, I want to bring this solution back home. But it's what's the term I use? Localization of basically like the products, right? You have to really understand the local layout. I think you're talking about a region that has, multiple different languages, right? You got Anglophone, you even got the Francophone, French-speaking countries, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, the DRC Congo. You got Nigeria, English, and then it has its own tribal languages as well. You got South Africa. I don't even know how many languages they have there. I think it's like 16 or 17 that are nationally like recognized. So like you have to really understand the moving parts, and I think that's the different aspects when we talk about the European or the US markets. Even just how you talk, right? It's just a communication aspect. So once you can understand that, then you can build products around that because the people are the ones actually going to be using them. It's not going to be, your OTC desk that do billions of dollars building the product that you want to do in Rwanda, right? So now you have to, and that's the whole part, build products for the people, so.
Powerful. Can you tell me just a rough idea of what gets transacted on Canza Finance in Africa right now? Like the countries and the types, because people keep saying Africa, but I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, there's so many countries.
There's so many different countries, and probably the majority of what you do is located in certain countries, at least currently in certain products, but maybe a rough idea.
Yeah, no, I think there is hundreds of millions being transacted in stablecoins, right? We just did a report with stablecoin intra-Africa trade with Tether and things of that nature to understand the data. And then we released it with like CoinMarketCap, and it got a really good reception because even though, like you said, you can hear it, but when you really have like the data, and that's what's really good about the blockchain, everything is recorded, right? So once you can have that and you can basically present that into these different boardrooms, etc., it really makes a difference. Because you can say, I know fintech guys that move 5 billion, right, of just pure FX of just two pairs. I know other people that did 300 million, covering maybe 4, 5, 8 different countries. So like the capital is being moved there, especially the B2B sector. But then there is the B2C aspect. And I think that's what we're seeing with all these different movements. And every time you've seen these different cycles in digital assets, you hear about these countries, right? Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, because there's innovation, there's a young population that's ready to build, that are hungry, right? And like hungry to really like make a change. And then they see like as well, like you have all these tools, Instagram, Twitter, they see how big the world is. So now they can really bring those different ideas and bring them, especially now with a Web3, APIs, open source, basically environment, you can really build and actually make a change.
You said before that like stable coins are just such a massive innovation, and maybe even more so for African markets, maybe because there's so many different local currencies, or I'm curious, why is that so important for what you're doing in Africa?
Yeah, so one of the challenges that we've seen when we were on the ground originally is just that the US dollar shortage that are in banks, right? You want to go and say, I want to send $100,000, that transaction might take 1 or 2 weeks, or it could take 1 or 2 months, depending on the different financial institutions.
In Africa?
Yes.
Wow.
So multiple different countries, we're talking about different systems. So everything is basically decentralized, right? So when stablecoins, it's instant settlement, it's all on chain, But then now, obviously, now you need to have those rails, right, of those on and off ramps that we hear a lot. So that's really the big reason, because of the US dollar shortage that was initially there. Stablecoins as well, right? It's a very simple contract. If you look at the Tether, you look at also Circle, very simple contract, minting and burning, right, and sending. So, but those are the biggest business models that we see within the space now. I forgot the number. I think Tether's last quarter was in the billions.
Yeah.
And it's a simple solution. This is not like giga brain. I'm going to DeFi and do all these different tools and parts. So I think, simple and being clear is it's very effective as well.
Yeah, the Tether business model kills me. It's like, we're going to issue tens of billions of dollars of stable coins, and we're going to keep the interest. And then, but you get the digital coin, and everybody wins because the whole system is so slow and so antiquated and so expensive that they don't have to give you the coupon, and it's still a value add for you. And then they just pocket the coupon. There's no rocket science here.
Exactly.
And they're going to keep doing that because they got network effect. And God bless them, you know? Why not?
It's effective, and it's actually solving. Because when you're talking about import, export, you're coming from either Western countries, China, Asia as well. There's a lot of B2B. One time we had a request for quote for like $300,000 just to buy bed sheets from Korea, right? So like people don't truly understand that. I think, I'm just gonna be frank here, like I think, media, right? And this is perfect that we had a media aspect, is that we're growing up seeing, the $1 a day, the aspect of all these different parts of Africa, where now where we're older, 20 years later, you see all this new technology, and that's why now people are like, oh, I want to visit, Dakar. I want to visit, Zanzibar in Tanzania. So I think that's the beauty of everything, is that, but the whole part is that the capital's there. The capital's always been there since, Mansa Musa and the gold trade, to one of the richest, I think the richest man on earth at that time. So I think it really comes down to narrative, and platforms like this are telling like the real stories. I think that's really, really, really big, because I started thinking about like TV, watching Friends or all these shows growing up in like the 90s. But there's an exercise that I do when I'm in like New York. I always talk to the Uber guys, right? And they always come from, all these countries. That's what's the beauty about New York is, but there's always a part going towards like the American dream, right? But the American dream aspect of them is I have to go to New York City. I'm like, you can go ahead and make right now, $800,000 in Wyoming. So I think now we're at this part where the stories and, taking pride of where you're from, I think we're in that era now. And I think that, that's a beauty part. Because we see it from Netflix, the categories, the movies, it's the story aspect.
So just drilling down to that, you're saying that we need to change really the perception of Africa 100%. From the financial markets. 100%. Because like you said, when maybe I grew up, I think you're a little younger than me, but we'd see on TV like, support this poor African country, $1 a day. I mean, if you go back to the 80s, it's the images of starving Ethiopians on the screen.
Exactly, the famine,
Yeah,
exactly.
And back then, that was the only media, let's be honest. And so everybody got in their minds that these are capital poor countries and everyone's suffering. And so they don't think of it as a place for making money financially or building financial markets there. 100%. When in fact, you're like, wait a second, wake up. The only reason that we're talking about these places is because they have massive financial resources, massive populations, and they're massive opportunities.
100%.
But the narrative is the thing holding it back.
As well.
And you know that because you're on the ground.
Yeah, and I think from what you said, that unique aspect of the Australian part, the US, and then going back to Nigeria, is that with that, let's say the American system, right? You go to school, you go to college, right? You get a job. But then, Australia, with the hardworking aspect that I mentioned, I know people that have stopped at year 10 and they're multimillionaires right now. So the whole thing about what I've seen globally is that, as long as you have that passion and you have the will, you're gonna make it, right? The US is really good because it offers a lot of opportunities, right? You can really, it's very structured. So as long as you understand the system and you can go to those different parts, then you can really make it, right? From really coming from nothing. Australia is very, like I said, very hardworking and like very, very family orientated type of thing. But like Africa aspect really shows you what you can do without. Probably someone will kill me right now, but like the things that I liked initially before, now I got, what's it called, solar power at the house now, is that power was coming off and on, right? And that was a part when I was like, hold on, this is why I see so many people naturally entrepreneurs, right? Because if you really want to get something, then it's really going to like, you can really make it happen. And then I think as well, like vision and dreaming, like when there's not too many different aspects, your brain is like focused on other things, but then when you have the opportunity to get access to those tools, then that's how I see a lot of people succeeding. I think there's one stat, there's like, I don't want to misquote me here, it's like 80% of doctors in the US are from like Nigeria aspect. But then when I went back to Nigeria, it's like, hold on, how does this happen? When you see all these people on the streets, everyone's just hustling and bustling, but there's a very unique aspect, which I love about the country, and surrounding countries as well. I went to Cameroon. My co-founder is Cameroonian. I started seeing the French influence, like the breads and all these other things. So it's a beautiful place, man.
And you think that kind of, you said you were lacking power and stuff sometimes in Lagos, and you were just like, okay, it makes people think, all right, how can I fix this? How can I solve this? How can I work harder so this doesn't happen to me?
I think a lot of people are natural engineers, right? Because you're always problem solving. As well is that there's so many people as well. So, the competition and different aspects is high. So you really have to study or whatever path that you pick going forward. But I think what it shows you is that, and I think I'll get this from my grandma. She doesn't know nothing about all this Canza and all this technology. She's still in the village in Ede. And basically it's like, you can understand what makes you happy. And I think that's one of the biggest things when we talk about life in general, like family or, kids and all these other things. Because, you see people with very little, but then somehow they're still smiling on their face, So it's very unique, man. Very unique.
That's an interesting thing about Africa is like, it seems like a happier place. And then you meet the people that are really happy, they seem more genuinely happy than like the happy people in G7 countries.
Exactly.
Isn't that true?
Exactly. 100%.
It's so weird.
Yeah. 100%.
People say that also about people in India as well. You go and with apparently less stuff, they're more happy.
That's right.
And so, all right, so you're there on the ground and seeing the potential, all of this human potential there.
Yeah.
And like back to Canza, like if just to people get an idea, I think I asked you this on the call, if you looked at a lot of the transactions or potential you're seeing, is it like a lot of kind of oil money moving around in Nigeria? Is it, tourist money moving around in Kenya? Is it South African diamond money? Like just to give a rough idea of the lay of the land, what are some of the kind of the activities happening?
Yeah, I think you hit all the sectors pretty well. There's obviously a massive oil and gas. It's had a rich history on the oil and gas sector. But obviously now there's a massive import-export. There's almost 200 million people, right? So
in Nigeria.
Yeah, so massive. Now you're importing, you have to import all these different aspects. But then you have, I would say, obviously, and then it affects the trade from that side, commodities. But I think the import-export and oil and gas sectors are really high. But then as well, now financial services, you have regular, TradFi banks, it needs to service that financial inclusion sector. So you need to get them into the system and get them basically on accounts and all those other different things. So that sector has been doing very, very well. A lot of fintech companies all across the whole continent.
If there's 200 million people in Nigeria, how many of them are banked?
Great question.
By a traditional bank there?
Yeah, I don't know the rate currently right now, but I don't know, man. I don't know.
If in America, like 80% of a bank account, in Nigeria, would it be 20%?
Maybe 30 to 40, could be 50, but then there's so many remote parts. Because even myself, I'm much more from Ibadan. It's maybe an hour and a half from Lagos originally. Much more of like the Yoruba type of like landscape. So that was where I was going to when I visited like Nigeria initially. So totally different lens if you're like, born and raised in Lagos. So there's so many different flavors, and that's just one country, right? I went to Senegal. That was amazing, right? But, I'm lucky I had my co-founder there because you have to speak French. But at the end of the day, they have beaches that, Australia has the best beaches, I have to be honest, but they have very nice beaches in Dakar. It's like, you have like French tourists that come over, like there's so many different hidden gems. And then you have North Africa as well. And I went to East Africa, good as well. Kenya, Uganda, Kampala. So like, you got one country, obviously that, it's really good for the trade and business, but then you have so many different countries right next door.
I'm spending more time in Dubai, and one of my goals is to spend more time in Africa.
Okay.
Because it's 5-6 hours away to all these places. And I think I was telling you earlier, I've been to South Africa and Botswana, but I mean, that was a long time ago and it was great. I got a vibe, which is very different than what anywhere else, but I want to check out all these places. So you talk about Nigeria. If you had to talk about 4 other countries right now that are active, what would those be? And if you had to talk about 5 more countries in Africa that you think you'll be rolling out to, what would those be?
Yeah. I take the Web3 ethos pretty seriously, working with each other, working together. I know a lot of people just be solo minded, but that's the part of this whole Web3 aspect is to build together, right? Open source. So if I don't have the coverage, I know I have very good trusted OTC partners that do. So East Africa, where we talk about Kenya, Uganda, DRC Congo, even Congo, Brazzaville. South Africa, to be very honest, is a massive market, very, very big. Then you also have Kenya as well, with their buzz on technology as well. So I think, from our side, we really cover a lot of different, reach, either us directly or working with our counterparties.
Okay. And when you talk about individuals, is it individuals or also small businesses of those individuals?
Yeah, our small businesses, right? Obviously, you have these FX desks that are doing much larger, but we're talking about, just a mom and pop shop, basically a tourist, like you just said, a tourist or travel agency. Okay. They need to send money Citibank to New York to pay for the airfares and things like that. So all the different factors are all part of the economy over there. So.
Okay. And right now with Canza Finance, what are you building in DeFi? And what are you hoping to roll out? I know you got a token coming soon, which is pretty crazy and exciting. I'd be curious what that's being used for. But what are you building out in the DeFi space right now?
Yeah, for sure. I think from everything we just talked about previously is that's how I see when you talk about blockchains layer 1. The on and off ramps is what's needed for everything to be connected. But there are so many different companies or startups doing that, which is needed. But then once that layout is complete, then what is the layer 2, right? What do we do? We've seen that in maybe the 2020 DeFi boom of now it's the lending and the borrowing. So from our side, we wanted to take the Web2 composability and solve the real problems that we've seen from the layer 1 aspect, where we can mint and burn assets towards the rates that we actually see online. But then you have different rates that you see on the street. So that was one of the products that we're testing around, which is Barkey. Then
a little ARB there?
Yeah, there's ARB aspects there, but then also getting the pure feed of the data to understand now, because that's going to affect real financial aspects, right?
And if you're getting quoted, price.
Yeah. Exactly. Because we've been playing around with the CoinMarketCap API now, but then also there is data that's there's parallel markets, right? So we started building tools around that. I think we started now also have another product, which is credit default swaps, which is for centralized exchanges. So what we're seeing within FTX and Mt. Gox, if you had a tool that basically could take out that type of reverse coupon of, okay, there's these exchanges actually have the proof of reserves that they're saying, that could have been a different trading opportunity. So what we've seen is that our team, we look at, obviously started from the academia space. I think even I started from getting a grant from Zcash and just talking to people. And I think that's one of the best ways to really understand the problem. You don't want to go too long where you want to be an 8 years PhD, right? But you want to really understand it so you can build the cultivator tools for that market. So we took the financial aspects, got some guys in from Europe and things of that nature, so we can understand the different melting pots and then bring the right information to fill in that right gap. So very financial innovation. So credit default swaps, FX trading on chain. Then we also have some really cool things that we're doing with stablecoins for RWA vaults and yields. So we partnered up with some really big names, so that should be coming out in the next quarter. So it's going to get really interesting.
Do you think we'll get stablecoins for African currencies?
Yeah, I think it just depends on the market, right? But even with our testing aspect with Barkey, we've tested out some different formulas for that. It just comes down to the real demands pertaining to that specific region. But 100%, because it's just a matter of time, because it's innovation. I think that's the part about all these different startups is a lot of people is just copy and paste. So when you really have true innovation, then that's where you really get your edge. And I think that's where, if you're a VC or if you're you're an investor, that's where you're looking, because it's easy to copy and paste things, right? But I think you have to try something different. So 100% there will be different stablecoins.
So you got the Baki exchange, obviously your credit centralized exchange default swaps, the Jara network as well. Is that something you guys have built for cross-border settlements?
Yeah, that's for the TradFi type of solution. Basically, going back from, you have to build each layer, right? So we have to build that layer to a certain degree to understand how that really operates, and then we can build these innovative tools, right?
And so when you go and to Nigeria and you're there to do Canza business, what does your day look like? Are you going to meet with banks down there? Are you going to meet with people on the streets and asking them, like, what do you need? What do you use? Let me see how you might use this app. Are you talking to businesses? You're smiling.
No, that's a great question, because like when myself and my co-founder went in 2020, that was a major part. It was like the customer discovery phase, right? You have to get those answers to the exact questions that you just asked. And then you have to then cultivate that information and start really like moving upon that. Right now, just like with any other country, I'll say probably within Africa, it's regulation, obviously, that's a major part. So you want to have that open dialogue with the different regulators, because from what we've learned is that for the regulations to go through, like, they have to know what they're regulating. So you have to talk to the entrepreneurs and the innovators in these different sectors, right? So that's probably like priority number one. Then obviously, the current business aspects, client meetings, but there's really good developer communities, and then there's regular communities that just want to learn as well. So a lot of outreach as well. And I think from the outreach, we've learned like a lot. We had a university outreach program we did with Seller a few years ago, and we're going to like really like far out universities, but these universities have like 40,000, 50,000 students. And we were in the crowd talking, and these guys are talking about Tezos and different other like blockchains that you would have never have thought. But then that's when the part came about the fees, right? You're not going to be in Burkina Faso, right? And you're going to be developing on Ethereum, paying $16 just to do some testing contract. $16 in native currency is what, right? So that's when we're like, hold on, this fee aspect, and then maybe there's so much development on the Binance Smart Chain and anything that had the lowest fees, because it all plays in the economy aspect. But then now that economy part gets into the developer community. So you got to now have these different infrastructure and even onboarding tools. Let's just say this: if you want to do coding right now, majority from what I've seen and who I've talked to, it's all English when you're developing your smart contract or whatever. But if you're in Cameroon or Ivory Coast, you learn French your whole life. So then now if you do a wrong step on the keyboard and you want to build a multi-billion-dollar project, you see what I'm trying to say? So the outreach is very, very important.
I always hear that Ethiopia is like a place, or Cardano's there, Hoskinson goes there. Yeah. And then I used to see the Bitcoiners talk about how people are using it more aggressively than you thought. Is that true? And does that relate to what you're building?
Yeah, I think Ethiopia is a very big hotspot right now. Mining is really massive there.
Bitcoin mining or regular mining?
Yeah, I think Bitcoin mining. Okay. Bitcoin mining. Probably regular mining too. I have no idea at the moment. But the energy sectors, the regulations, everything supporting that. I think I just went to a conference over the Blockchain Life or something in Dubai. Yeah. They had a whole section about that. That was very interesting. I stopped. Africa, right? Yeah. Blockchain. So
it's all Russia. Like Africa.
Yeah,
that
so
was there.
I sat down and so Ethiopia, but then also there's, like I said, all these economies now, it's just going back to the people, right? There's people everywhere. So the thing how I seen it much more early, I say in the late like 2017, 2018, is that we all have all this capital and like investment vehicles, right? But then there's a lot of people that's just like my grandma. There's money probably in the roof or something. So now we're in this digital age. Is that those like scenarios is now brought into these systems, and then now it's like, okay, hold on, this capital is on chain or whatever, TradFi, like is in a bank. So now it's digitalized. So now it's like, okay, hold on, now we can really start building, because then that builds the economy. Right, foreign investments, all these other different things. So I think that's what we're seeing now, is just like the digitalizations basically across all different countries. And now it's just connecting all the dots back to my human peer-to-peer networking.
Yeah, I imagine there's so much capital that's just tied up, like you said, as we say in the States, under the mattress or in the attic or tied into a business. And that just slows a country down, right? Because in a Western world, that would be in the bank, which means it would be lent out and provide capital resources.
Exactly.
And so that's what you want to encourage. And when it's on the blockchain, it can go even faster and more opportunities.
And that's the part as well. And that's why I think that the outreach and the education is very important, is because these decision makers, right? They could be 30, 40. It's only one generation apart, but they think totally different. So you have to really get into their ears and really make them understand, in the best ways possible. But then there is, like you said, now all this capital is coming in these digitalized systems. And now how do we use that to, basically benefit or, better basically the quality of life?
And why not benefit the people for once and not the banks?
Exactly.
And I'm sure that would be refreshing for everybody in Africa, not to mention everywhere else, right?
For sure.
Because I'm sure maybe there are more than else where centralized institutions dominate. Mm-hmm. Before we were talking, you said you guys were ready to scale, and obviously you're looking to support billions of people in the future. And so what's Canza's plan? Obviously you got a token coming up soon. Maybe you can talk about that. And then what's the plan to scale going forward?
Yeah. So basically from, our vision now is really building that Web3 NeoBank. And I've had a lot of talk with the team internally. It's what does that truly mean, right? But now we talk about Web3, it's not just the financial aspect, it's the data part. So I think we have a very good cohort of investors, like our Protocol Labs and now also CoinMarketCap. So now we have access to very good high quality data. So now with all that data aspects and these different type of tools that we can really build on, that's what part of how I see, speaking from my perspective, is that you have the stablecoins and FX, foreign exchange. You have your financial type of trading instruments like centralized credit default swaps, and then you have this data element part, because the stablecoins is going to do the cross border, and then now you need to have this the B2C part. So building apps around the localized ecosystem. So we're talking about Telegram, right? X amount of users, okay? So it has accessibility to the wallet. So if you can build tools with that, with all the different investors and ecosystem partners that you have already, you can scale. So that's now, if you're looking at it, even at a banking application, how simple is it, right? So if you have your access to your wallet and it's ready in a tool where you're doing the messaging, and the messaging is the data element part now, then you can really basically onboard. Because when we did an analysis of all these different mini applications and all these different startups that were doing gaming, the top countries were all within Africa, but then if it wasn't that, it was Bangladesh, Turkey. So the mobile penetration narrative plus the blockchain, that's how we see, or how I see now, Web3 type of banks, because it's the data part, and then you also need the financial aspect. So with the wallet capability, that's the financial part, that's done.
It's like the WeChat for Africa.
That's it.
By leveraging Telegram.
That's it.
Is Telegram going to be the future of scaling for you guys in the medium term?
I think from a B2C angle, for sure. It's going to be a very good tool. If you're talking about creating your own application and go all the different marketing channels. But if you're, like I said, localized, if I'm already using this, let's build on top of this type of infrastructure stacks. But the B2B side is just really now, onboarding clients. Everything within every part of the world is all trust. So it's having these trust systems with the right partners, and then everything should be good to go. And I think that's the part now where we can take all of our globally recognized investors and partners with all these different regulations across the world, get the best parts of that, and then basically, like I said, utilize the Web3 type of ethos and build and present that into these different aspects. So the interesting part that I see, especially across the African continent, is that you have, all these different, regulations. When other people see, problems, that's why I see opportunity, right? Because now you can build different products for these different markets. And then they can all still interconnect, because the stable coins are still, doesn't matter what chain it is. I'm very blockchain agnostic, because if I'm in, let's say I'm in Ghana or I don't know, Algeria, wherever I'm at, and you want to send me 1,000 USDT, right? Oh, send it to me on on Arbitrum. No, I don't have an Arbitrum wallet. What are you gonna do? Like you can switch, you can change it. So wherever the stable coins are on these different chains, you can utilize that to basically assist the end problem. So I think that's the beauty of the blockchain as well, because it's all interconnected. And with the fee aspects really worked out, I think we're in for a good ride.
And the fees means we got to get off Ethereum mainnet. We got to get on other L2s.
Yeah, the layer twos are important going forward.
Are those all cost effective for Africa, or can those still be expensive?
Yeah, no, but the gas fees for layer twos like AVAX C chain is like 0004.
Base.
Yeah, Aptos is 00001.
Okay.
Base as well, I'm sorry, yeah, Jesse Powell, Base and all those guys, the Coinbase aspect, yeah. That's really good chain as well, a lot of builders on there now too. So I think the layer twos, if you have your own specific niche and your own market, I think that will work. You have, I say around 2017, there was a, how I looked at it, you had like Neo, which was for like China, you had like Stellar, which was more towards Africa, right? Ethereum was really more of the global, but then Asia as well. Filecoin, really in the Korean market. But now we've grown, I think we've grown past that, and now it really comes down to the interoperability.
How is Telegram penetration in Africa? Is it certain countries where it's more or less? Overall, is it used? Because it's not used in America much.
Yeah, I think 100%, especially now with like, all these like airdrop hunters and, all these other different applications, but the games as well, right? I think that's, like I said, mobile penetration, access to gaming, you're gonna keep busy. So I think that's a really big hit. But to be very honest, man, WhatsApp is the one, man.
Really?
WhatsApp is it, yeah. You can have WhatsApp. I know people that have multi-million-dollar businesses just on WhatsApp all day.
Huh. Okay.
WhatsApp is like that communication. Thumbs up to that.
But you're not going to get a wallet on WhatsApp anytime soon.
Yeah, you're not going to get that.
So,
you're not going to get
but
that.
like in Nigeria, will there be like 10% of the population using Telegram, or will they use it?
Yeah, no, it has a big market share now already.
Okay.
Like, look at all these other different like Telegram mini apps. Nigeria is one of the countries on the list. You have, like I said, Kenya, Cameroon as well, and Uganda. So like, yeah, every single one of these countries are all pretty up there. And Ethiopia too.
Yeah.
Ethiopia.
It's interesting because look, Telegram, obviously massive app, ton ecosystem, everyone's super bullish. It's still finding its way. You need developers there. And I'm always suspicious of just eyeballs for eyeballs' sake. But if you can tap into those eyeballs and get them to do banking with you on there, and really to where they really see an edge, much better than their local bank, then you could tap into something that no one else can. Because they can sell you that you got eyeballs, but it just eyeballs in all these places isn't necessarily valuable. But if you're actually doing their banking for them, that's huge.
That's massive.
Okay.
Massive opportunity. And that's the part I think we just talked about previously. When you're in like, if you're like a really like entrepreneur, like it's like MIT and all these different schools in the US, right? It has its ceiling. But when you go now to LATAM, you can go to Mexico, you can go to Colombia, you can go to Chile right now. There's all these different markets. So the ceiling is still open. So that's 100% the reason why I moved back permanently. And then I think that's now you're seeing that, especially with all this globalization, like people from second generation from overseas, they want to go back because I started thinking about it. When you're training, all your smartest people overseas, and then they're not coming back to basically spread the information that they learn, you have to feed, like you have to come back with the information, to really grow. I think I've seen that like in college, there was certain countries where they'll just come for school and then they go right back home. They're not even living over there. And I think we're seeing that shift a little bit. We've seen that in different news stories now. It's like, a lot of the talent is not within, I guess, say, the North America, so that area, and they're going towards, and it's going to be a massive problem. Like San Francisco, like if you lose a lot of that talent, where's it going to go? They're going to build and develop places like Dubai and all these other places. So
now you got your token coming up soon. Why is that important for like your ecosystem and scaling? Why do you need that token? And how goes a TGE? It's probably one of the most important things a founder ever does.
Yeah, I think from my side, it's been down these different cycles. Like so, I haven't thought about it too much. I just like to keep working hard. But the token basically is going to be connecting all those different applications and the future applications that we have in our R&D tank to basically get the revenue share from all these different products. But then also a liquidity layer, right? all those stable coins that can be utilized now in these different DeFi and tokenization aspects to basically provide that liquidity for credit, credit lending and all those other different aspects. So we need, how we look at it is build the tokens, have the products, and then really integrate and growing towards that aspect.
Okay, so that's coming up soon.
It's coming up soon.
And you're looking to have people hold that token globally and a lot of locals.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because the thing is, like, Africa is just one part of the world, right? The blockchain there's no country specific. So more connectivity, back to like my peer-to-peer Cisco line type of thing. It's connecting to the world. You're seeing that with maybe even with music right now, like it's borderless. So how we see it now is that connecting these continents, when you have that import-export, you want to have that trading partner in Brazil. If you're living in Mozambique, right? It's two Portuguese-speaking countries. I can use like stable coins, your wallet infrastructure, different applications, and then we can just go ahead and settle trade. So it's not just intra-Africa trade, which we had in those CoinMarketCap reports. It's a global trade. But now you're bringing that talent and connecting them to different business partners. I say one time I went to the village and, I seen, traders. And when we were reporting all this data, I'm like, hold on, man, you have a $6 million business that you do trading with trading partners in Asia. You would never have guessed that. So I think that's the power, like I said, the internet, great equalizer part. But it's connecting global trade together and having, like I said, it's not just financial inclusion, but just financial access.
It's interesting, like as you start penetrating countries in Africa, like you said, you've got countries with links to all these countries around the world. Yeah. Right? So like you got Portuguese-speaking ones, you got French-speaking ones, then you probably got China doing business in some of these countries.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's weird, like by building in Africa, in a weird way, you're building infrastructure for the rest of the world.
Yep. That's that settlement part, the cross-border, the on and off ramps is very important. But we got a lot of interesting RFQs or requests for quotes, all types of countries. You got the European settlements, you got, like I said, LATAM settlements, intra-Africa settlements. But now it's like, okay, what tools can we build around this, and then we can really move forward. So
okay, and so we talked a lot about Africa today, but you mentioned Turkey and South America, and it's just any emerging market and then any market.
Yeah, for sure. I think our latest round we had one of our investors here did a lot of deals in LATAM before he created his own VC fund, and he started really giving us access to a lot of OTC desks in Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Mexico. And that's was like, hold on, if you just, even from the B2B sector, if you have the simple business revenue, 20 bips, 10 bips, whatever it is, the conversion fees, like I said, they connect. You're gonna have some type of trading channels. So I think, it's just more connectivity, different counterparts, but obviously it just comes down to, each individual plan or style. Obviously people wanna, just get one market and go from there. But we have one life. I think, you should dream big but you need to work hard, act big.
What's the competition look like out there?
You know what, man? That's a great question because a couple of investors asked that 1 or 2 years ago, right? And how just my brain and my point of view, back to my Web3 ethos type of thing. If I don't see it as competition, we have to work together because the problem's too big.
Okay.
The problem's way too big.
Right.
But yeah, there's multiple different FX desks and all these other different things. But I think
local FX desks in each country that are trying to build a blockchain piece.
100%. I was listening to Mauritius, they have the VAPS licensing structure over there. That's a whole different dynamic. But there's going to be some type of OTC that does their local field to digital assets, right? So I think
that's good for you.
Yeah.
Because that's more customers.
Exactly. And there's going to be some type of trading channel from some guy in Cameroon that might need to make some payments to Mauritius. So those are all the different moving parts because, like I said, the problem is so big. A lot of people do, even how we're just talking now, Africa, but 50 plus countries, man. 50 plus countries. I just looked at my passport the other day, it's full, right? And it's just there's a lot of stamps and a lot of pages. And I said, please don't stamp the last page because I need to get past the customs. But it's massive. When we talk about the US, that's also one country. Right, one country, we're all aligned to all one banking system, etc. But 50 plus, it's 50 plus.
Is there anybody coming at it from a really high level or from a Western financial institution that's trying to come over there and build this thing? Or
there's a lot of interest from that from the Western market world because, like I said, it's global trade. I think, but now it's working with the regulated aspects and entities. I think that's what we're going towards now, and that's what's needed now too. Like, we're not going to keep doing like the same old thing, peer-to-peer all day. So now, like I said, there's so many different vast programs in these different countries. So getting those licenses, now you can connect to these exchanges that need to do, if they have 60,000, 100,000, 2 million users, let's say in, I don't know, Botswana, right? They need to have those payment companies, PSP providers, FX or market makers in those countries locally to then do that legally. So all these different, companies are needed because like I said, the problem is too, it's massive. It's massive.
And what's your single biggest challenge for the next, say, 12 months besides the token generation event?
Get a good sleep.
Are you scaling? Are you hiring?
Yeah, for sure. I think right now we're just aligning everything towards, like I said, the TGE event. Doing a lot of activations, a lot of underground activities, AMAs. We've got a lot of partners rolling out that are very, very pretty big, especially in the RWA space, also in the FX space as well. And then also now towards each individual product, getting some local talent as well as global talent to get that mix in to really scale these products.
And so roughly, like, how many people do you have now and what are you going to?
Yeah, so probably around now, it's around 13, I'll say, contractors, etc. But yeah, I think I'll probably have to get a good board meeting together, but at least another 10. But the developers, as well from my side, just coming up, developer community and impacting them. So if it's not us doing it directly, have one of these dev shops, right, that have the talent, right? There's so many talented people, and then they can contract out, right, and build these products. I don't think it's one that's going to take all. I don't think that's really going to be the best mindset for 50 plus countries, right? But it's now working with the best of the best, to achieve the same result.
You mentioned RWA, something we hear a lot about in this market, but it's also becoming real in this market. What type of RWA do you think you're going to be facilitating in Africa and beyond, especially with Canza?
That's a great question.
And this could be the year of RWA, so that actually happening. We're seeing BlackRock tokenize lots of financial assets, as well as Franklin Templeton, which I think you have things with as well. So yeah.
No, I think tokenization, right? When we see that from at least from the angle, because even to me, stable coins is a lot of obviously tokenization, right?
It's an RWA, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So obviously from that level, we're seeing the billions of stable coins being utilized for B2B use cases, etc. Then now we're talking about there's these old projects. So I think back in like 2017, 15, Bitland in Ghana. We're talking about land titles. We're talking about now all these properties and, like I said, the narrative, but all these 50 plus countries have X amount of real estate. So now it's like, okay, say you go to a country, whatever, Rwanda, now you want to tokenize all that real estate. What is that? What is that, 10 billion worth of assets? So I think from our side, we're at the level now where the tools are built, right? There are startups that have the right technology. Now it's connecting those channels, the marketing aspects, and basically BD to really bring on all of this because, the environment is ripe for it, right? One entity over here has a problem, the technology is over here to solve it. So now it's just bridging that aspect and finding that common ground. I'm not gonna say like greed or anything, it's like the big breaker, but like if it's, now with the fees being eliminated with a lot of this blockchain tech, there's actually, actually space to really build here, products that are actually gonna be impactful.
So you think maybe property is where it starts?
Property, real estate, commodities, contracts, letters of intent, any type, like all those different assets that we see in the Western aspects, but then now from this side of the world. So we're thinking about, you have this shift of bringing all this money into these banks, right? But now it's like bringing all these other assets on chain. I don't even know what the number will look like right now, but from our side, we're thinking 100% like land titles, property. Those are I think they're good starting blocks. But now even complex financial instruments, different things like that connected to the RWA assets that are tokenized. If you have a commodity contract, you're doing sugar from Brazil or whatever it is, and then now you can utilize that as a bond. You have all these markets that have their own bond markets. We're talking about U.S. Treasury T-bills, but then you have, I don't know, XAF bonds and XOF bonds. What happens if they come
OF is what?
XOF is West African franc, and then you have so one's for Cameroon and the other one's for like Senegal and Ivory Coast. But they have all different bond markets. Right?
So you can tokenize those, you can get some great yields, and a lot of your customers might want some of that exposure.
Potentially, yeah. Which customers or which part of the world wants to get interest into these different like arbitrage opportunities potentially.
What do you make of what BlackRock's doing in general? Michael Saylor always jokes that Larry Fink is the chief marketing officer for Bitcoin, but obviously they pushed the ETF through, in my opinion. I don't think it would have happened without them. They're got this BIDL network. They're tokenizing securities. I think usually it's treasury bonds right now, but they're doing more. What do you make of that? Because they're doing that. Does that encourage you?
100%.
Yeah, tell me.
100%, because a lot of these different parts of the world, they follow Wall Street. At the end of the day, that's just the honest truth. So if these big banks are doing this and get into these different other basically alternative or innovative type of asset classes, then that's what other people will follow once they come through. I've talked to a lot of big banks about, they all have different digital asset departments that people will never heard of. There's one-man team, two-man teams, etc. But now with the information that we're getting from New York and all these different other big institutions, it's a bigger push for them to go now to their board and be like, okay, this is what they're doing. But then now we can bring that to our local market, and then that's when everything can go X, right? So I think that has encouraged me. I've talked a lot about RWA. It seems like there's a lot of different projects maybe 3 or 4 years ago that fit the category now, but now since it's really good and it's like categorized and departmentalized type of thing, I think we're in for a good ride.
Now, we got a new administration coming in America. You're part American somehow in there, Australia, American, Nigerian, soon to be Emirati, I guess. What do you make of this new administration, their pro-crypto stance? We got a new SEC chairman coming in, apparently all sorts of presidential orders. What do you think? Because you've been in this market for 10 years. Yeah,
I think, man, it's good, man. Like 2017, I went to office with BNY Mellon to talk about mining, right? And they were just like, what is this? Because, they want to see different changes, or they need certain in their financial type of documents to get into these type of alternative asset classes. So now with like a pro-governmental aspect, 100%, because it goes back towards that brain, that talent drain. Now, if your government is supporting that, you can now get that entrepreneur that, say he's doing engineering and, is a senior in college. Oh, hold on, I might really get into like blockchain, but then I'm going to stay here and develop products. I'm not going to go to, Singapore or go to wherever, Seychelles or something like that to build my product. I can build that here locally. So I think it's going to create that ripple effect of, and I think it's going to hit like the entrepreneur sector 100% in the US.
The market is so underpricing this new administration, in my opinion. I can't even believe that it hasn't reacted more. And it's reacted a lot. It's up 30% since the election results came out, but I think it should be up maybe 333%. Because there's a lot coming, and I think it's going to open floodgates, and then America's going to innovate, and a lot of people. That's it.
Because we're talking about, what are we in 2025 now? With like 16 years? Obviously, the world's moving fast, but yeah, we're in a good position for like, there's so many different cycles of like, you had the hacks and all these other different things, but with any type of change, obviously a lot of maybe listeners and viewers already heard like, the innovation, the alcohol prohibition, like everything goes after it follows. But I think we've really flushed a lot of that out now. And we're really getting to like products that are actually going to stick. And we can see that in the market now you can tell a project that's just, not 10 out of 10, right? And I think it just comes back down to like innovation and solving real problems.
Yeah, and we're actually seeing that happen now. We didn't see that 4 years ago. 5 years from now, what does Canza Finance look like?
I think we're going to be at one of those later stages of that Web3 NeoBank aspect. Stablecoin utilization, innovative products around stablecoins for yield generation, different access and tools for, like I said, you can do the tokenization of your assets. Let's say you log into your computer, you can digitalize your own, land, and that you have the templates already to scan them, and then they can come an asset. So I think different things like that. But yeah, I think we're going to be towards that Web3 NeoBank and cover very good coverage and probably hit the numbers, billions. We're going to be working towards that, but I think we're going to get a good stab at it.
It's interesting. It almost feels like, Africa's like that last remaining continent that it still hasn't been tapped or understood by the world. Like I use an example of the UFC. So the UFC now is on almost every other continent. They're building performance institutes in maybe every continent, but it's something that Dana White's like, we have not made it as a business until we've done a main event in Africa, until we have a performance event there. And even though like a lot of the champions are coming from there, the company's not there yet. And I don't know if that's evidence of such a massive opportunity there. Also an evidence that it's such a complicated opportunity. It's a continent unlike any other. And obviously you guys are going in there, to do something similar. Is that accurate? Would you say it's
I think it's the same thing.
Frontier?
I think it's the same thing with Formula One, right? Formula One doesn't have a race in Africa, and I think that's what they want to go to. So I think what we're seeing now is with that, like I said, the globalization, obviously the marketing and all these moving parts. I started talking to some FX partners in Africa, and they're all following Formula One. Obviously, and I'm like, hold on, is this a success of the Netflix show, right? So like understanding these stories, it's connecting and you're getting a whole new audience. I think I watched the interview with Israel Adesanya talking about UFC in like Lagos and Nigeria. So I think where obviously the Rumble and the Jumble like 20, 30, 40 years ago, right?
70s.
Yeah, so I think we're ripe for that. The complexity of multiple parts, it's just a conversation between us now, but when you're on the ground, that's when you actually feel it, right? A lot of parts are complex. This case scenario, right? COVID, right? I took 1/2 of my flu vaccine in Australia, but then I went to get my other flu vaccine, and it was a different one for foreigners. So then I'm going around for like 7 hours. I have to go to Portugal the next day just to get the second half of the vaccine from the AstraZeneca, whatever it was, right? And I was just like, hold on, man. I spent my whole day, traffic, running around 3 different centers just to get the flu vaccine. And it's just like, those are the little challenges that people won't really see. But on the flip side of that, when I look at, this life in general, experience, it builds character, man. So, and I think all that type of stuff is what then like refines your brain to develop interesting, cool stuff, because you've gone through different challenges that other people haven't. So then you can see things at a different angle. I think from the story we just talked about, I was a network engineer. I learned the finance aspect, for the degen part. Then I had to get in, the TradFi bankers to really build the right products to match the moving parts together. But I think, connecting the dots is one of the biggest parts, and happy about it.
And ultimately, we need the storytelling and the media to change the narrative out there.
For sure.
And you're kind of well aware of that.
Yeah, for sure. I think all the tools that we see now, like Instagram, and like I said, the Netflix, you see all these, different like country specific. I think you have India that creates a lot of movies, and I think Nigeria, they go back and forth to 1 and 2. They produce a lot of content. That content is data. That data now can be into Web3 and be on chain, transparent and transferable.
Yeah, like the F1 example is a really good example because like I could have cared less about F1, a few years ago.
Drive to Survive as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I watched it. Yeah, that's now I care.
I went to the one in Singapore. I was like, first F1 race, took pictures, everything. I think, like that one show now got me into a whole new genre. I didn't care about it growing up, man.
I know. I remember I worked in the city of London for a long time. I took a client to the Monaco Grand Prix. And even after going there, I didn't care. I was like, I don't get it. I still, and I know guys that go to F1 races and they're like, the Netflix show is so much better because you get to know the personalities and you see what's on the line and stuff like that. So it's amazing how that's opened up a whole new market for them. Imagine, the Netflix show for Canza and what you're doing, or about Africa and all these individual markets and opening people's eyes to the opportunities and the real world aspects of it. That's coming.
Yeah, I think, and that's the part that I've even learned now of like pre-TGE and working all these different like rooms, right? Is that The influence part. I think, what was that show? Firefest, right? That was one of the first times I've really seen influencer marketing. See, I must have moved a lot when I seen that impact of it. So now I see that basically the part of individuals really having that type of impact and influence, and then we can utilize that to these different storytelling narratives. Go on Instagram, it's Instagram stories. It's literally, stories is the biggest thing.
And so for your TGE, you're going to try to tap into KOLs and influencers so they can help you tell the world about what you guys are about to do.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so important these days, right?
Yep.
Man, I love what you guys are doing, and I love the fact that you're doing it. And so I would say as you go on, make sure that you put yourself front and center. Because like your story, I think is the Canza story, and somehow is the story of what you're trying to do over there and how you're trying to disrupt and change everything. And as soon as people hear you talk, I think they're going to be all in.
Thank you, man.
How can people learn more about Canza? How can they learn more about the TGE? How can they start to do business with you from a TradFi perspective and even from an individual or an SME perspective? What's the best way to start and really get their hands dirty with what you're doing?
Sure. I think just reaching out to us via email, also a Telegram group, and definitely 100% to Twitter.
Okay, and what's your Twitter? Are you at Canza?
Yeah, at Canza Finance.
At Canza Finance.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. TGE coming up soon.
Yep.
And obviously you're hiring, expanding, the whole thing's coming.
Yep.
Billions are coming after that.
That's it.
Deji, again, we're super pumped. I remember after you pitched, I told my team, I was like, so much of what we believe in and why we're in decentralized finance is because we want to bring banking to the whole world. And yet most of our projects aren't doing that. And I'm like, we don't see many people like you that come from the inside and from the outside at the same point. And obviously you went on the ground and you built all of this. And we know this is a super unique opportunity, and every day I get more excited about it. So
thank you, man.
Yeah, pumped to be on this journey with you. Thank you for sitting down with me. Excellent conversation. And then wishing you guys all the best for TGE and beyond.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Cool. Thank you.
Appreciate it, brother.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
And I just want to say thanks to Web3 TV. We'll see you next time.
Web3.tv